Hello, and welcome to Democratic Dialogue, a monthly production of the Gloucester City Democratic Committee on issues facing our city and our Commonwealth and our nation through the lens of the Democratic Party. My name is Matthew Murray. I am a resident of Gloucester, a member of the Democratic City Committee, and a member of the Democratic State Committee. And with me today are Karen Bell, who is the chair of the Democratic City Committee of Gloucester, and Arthur Powell, a member of the Democratic State Committee from Beverly, all the way over the bridge. We're here tonight to talk about the recent Massachusetts Democratic State Convention that was held in Springfield on September 14th, and also to talk a little bit about how that convention is a stepping off point to what's coming next as we draw ever closer to 2020. First of all, if Karen and Arthur, would you like to introduce yourselves a little bit? Arthur, you're our guest. Do you want to start? Or?
Sure. Arthur Powell, I'm from Beverly. I'm on the Democratic State Committee. I serve on the Executive Committee. I'm a member of the Beverly Democratic City Committee, and my district is Beverly, Danvers, Salem, Peabody, and Topsfield.
Great, fantastic. And Karen?
I've been involved with the Democratic City Committee for at least 8 years, and I've chaired it for close to the last 4. And every month we have, it seems like a full agenda of events and topics, speakers, and activities designed, to basically to bring Democrats together every month. And as you said, learn about issues, but get involved. So we can, and the convention, of course, is one huge way to get involved, which we can talk more about.
Excellent. So, first of all, people might be familiar, especially people who are watching, are pretty familiar with the city committee and how the party functions to some degree, and we might go into a little bit more detail in that at other times. But the idea of a convention, people are probably very familiar with the quadrennial Democrat and Republican conventions that are held in presidential election years, but they might not be as familiar with the fact that the Democratic Party of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts holds a convention as almost every year or every year for some time now, and what that actually means and accomplishes, and especially the difference between an even-numbered year when we have nominating conventions and an off-numbered year, an odd-numbered year like 2019 has been, where we might not be nominating candidates for Senate or governor, but are tackling other issues. And what are how would you succinctly describe the differences?
Well, the opportunity that we have in what we would refer to as an off year would be for us to all get together and to have an opportunity to hear from our elected officials. I think we had 30 different speakers at this particular convention, which was held in Springfield. The Gloucester connection is one of the co-chairs, was our governor's counselor, Eileen Duff, who's a Gloucester resident. The other co-chair was Suffolk County Sheriff Steve Tompkins. And then we heard from any number of statewide and local elected officials, including Elizabeth Warren and Senator Ed Markey. Beyond that, there was an opportunity to have breakout sessions on specific topics that we had panel discussions on, and we can discuss those when appropriate, but it's always a great opportunity. When you go to a state convention, you sit by Senate district. So for this Senate district, it's 17, 18 communities all sit together, and you see people that maybe only see once a year, and you have that opportunity to network. And I can't tell you how many things have started at a Democratic State Convention and have blossomed into somebody running for office or some kind of a movement or some kind of a discussion after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
So, one thing that people probably don't usually realize is that the delegates to the convention from every ward in the state are actually elected. And they're elected at a caucus. So there's an opportunity, usually every year, but it occurs maybe a few months before for communities to hold caucuses. And of course, Gloucester did this in, I'm trying to remember, probably May. We had a window when we had to do this. And we elected, I think it was probably about 14 or 15 delegates. And each ward elects their own, and then they go as a group, or that is individually, but we sit as a group at the convention, as Arthur mentioned. And of course, that's, I think this year, at least 9 delegates from Gloucester came. And just sitting together for several hours at the convention is a great opportunity just to, between speeches, sometimes during speeches, to chit-chat. And that's when a lot of, things can happen. I mean, ideas, friendships, connections, and it's really, and I think some of the people that attended this year attended for the very first time. And I think for them it was really a very meaningful experience. And I asked, and I can talk more about this later, but I asked them to write up, just whatever recollections they have from this experience. And I really enjoyed reading the accounts, and we've actually sent them out in our latest newsletter, so people can actually read, from firsthand experiences, what people thought.
Excellent.
So
do you both feel? I mean, if it was a useful year, or did you go to? You said breakout sessions, the seminar.
Yep.
There's run by seminars. That there was a useful. It was useful, to go to Springfield.
Well, and again, for us, it was a little more difficult than some to go to Springfield. And oftentimes what will happen is you go the night before, you stay in a hotel, there's all kinds of activities the night before, there's parties that go on and different officials that will host events. And then the next day there may be a breakfast that somebody hosts, and then you check into your delegation. And my delegation, which was not necessarily close to the 1st Essex Middlesex, Congressman Moulton came over to say hello. Treasurer Deb Goldberg came over to say hello. Jay Gonzalez, who was our nominee last year, happened to be sitting in front of us in his delegation from Needham. And so he came around to check in and see how everybody was. So beyond that, there were certainly great inspirational messages and help for delegates who were in attendance to get a good grasp as to where we're headed for 2020. And then I can just talk briefly about some of the breakout sessions that took place in the afternoon. So one had to do with the Green New Deal, and that was head up by a panel of folks, but the leader of that was Senator Ed Markey, who was an author of the Green New Deal. Building Bridges, Not Walls. State Rep Liz Miranda was the lead on that. Time for Talk, Unpacking Race in Politics. Congressman Joe Kennedy was the lead on that discussion. Inclusive Economic Prosperity, Challenges and Opportunities. Former State Treasurer Steve Grossman was the lead on that. And then the final breakout session was In This Fight Together, spotlighting the work of coalitions and allies, and the leader on that was State Rep Liz Malia.
Excellent. So one of the other things that comes up, especially in these odd-numbered year elections, is platform agenda items and resolutions. And you had mentioned very briefly there the Green New Deal. It's putting a specific plank of support in the Democratic platform for the Green New Deal, for the Roe Act, for other things that come up, which do set us off toward 2020 because they become policy issues. And did you feel that those issues were hot button, or that they got discussed a lot, or that bringing them to the fore at a convention really sets them off as being big talking points for 2020 for Democrats in the Commonwealth?
Well, I think they're certainly common talking points, and in many instances it was a reaffirmation of established policy and ideas that are consistent with the Democratic Party. There was not, in my estimation, a great deal of discussion. They were passed unanimously. There was one in particular that was not deemed within the scope of the local state party, and so that one was tabled, but everything else was approved with acclamation.
Right. The process involved, and this wasn't necessarily apparent to everybody unless they had actually read, some of the background material before going to the convention, but a committee actually met, I think, I don't know how many times, but they had a deadline in August, and all the resolutions were submitted. They considered them. They then deliberated and recommended for approval, as Arthur mentioned, all but I think but one. But they included some new things like fair and affordable housing, affirming support for access to safe and legal abortion, the Roe Act, Medicare for all, taking money out of politics, support of a Green New Deal. So some of the big issues for 2020 were certainly highlighted and approved by the convention, which in a way I think helps us as local committees to be able to focus on, let's debate some of these things at the local level. Or what does it mean for us? The party has essentially, at least our state party, has given kind of a green light for some of these new ideas. And I think that's important. It helps to provide a little structure and guidance for, what issues do we take up or not take up? Which ones are relevant and not so relevant?
Gives us a little bit of meat to chew on as we
That's right.
plan our monthly or quarterly meetings here in the community. Now, actually, to speak on that, as we look at the convention as a part of the whole, we also have, as a part of the Democratic Party of the state, we also have our local city committees. And going forward, sort of pivoting towards what's next, because people are inundated every day with news about what could or could not happen in the next few months. And I would say, what can we talk about? What to expect when everything is unexpected, so to speak.
Yeah.
We have this enormous field of Democrats running for president, which is some people have framed it as a sign of confusion, when I think that's actually a fantastic spectrum of people standing up and running on issues that they feel strongly about. But as we move towards 2020, we have these campaigns, a lot of them very active in New Hampshire. We're in the same media market, so we get a lot of their ads. What is the place of the state committee and the local committees going forward, insofar as we can see in our Marianne Williamson borrowed crystal ball? Or are we still looking for guidance on that, or is it still forming?
I think the first thing that we can look for in the future will be our next state convention. So the next state convention will be much closer to home. It has not yet officially been voted on by the Democratic State Committee. It will be during our November meeting. But as far as I'm aware, there's one municipality that has put in for hosting the next state convention, and that's going to be Lowell, which is great. It isn't necessarily an overnight, although you certainly can if you want to. And the date is going to be May 30th, which is a little sooner. We usually do the first Saturday in June, and in Lowell it's a little bit of a conflict because the Tsongas Arena does a lot of high school graduations. So we're now, and Memorial Day is early, so the 30th of May is a great target opportunity for us. So that's the first thing that's going to happen. Your caucuses will probably be during the months of February and March. So anybody who expresses any interest in our topic today has an opportunity. Any Democrat can run as a delegate to the state convention at
That's right.
the caucus. And here in Gloucester, the caucuses are held on the same day for each ward at the same location and the same time. So it's easy.
And generally also, this has been a good idea to have it at the same time as one of our monthly meetings on the second Thursday of the month. So it's boosted
Correct.
attendance.
Right.
So that is actually coming up, I suppose, closer. Is that we were just talking about the last convention that's only passed 6 weeks ago, but we are only talking about 3 or 4 months in preparation for the next one. So what are we expecting to happen there? And of course, now that we know that Congressman Kennedy has officially thrown his hat in the ring, we will be having a vote on possibly nominating or endorsing someone for our Class 2 United States Senate seat. Do you see that becoming the clincher issue in the next convention?
Well, it's certainly going to be a factor because there's actually 4 candidates that are Democrats that are going to be running for the nomination. Shannon Liss Reardon and Steve Pemberton, as well as Joe Kennedy and Senator Markey. So yeah, that's going to be certainly because we will be nominating somebody out of that convention. It is worth noting that Senator Markey spoke in Springfield and Congressman Kennedy did not. He was part of the breakout session, and so it was, it was an opportunity for him to singularly address. And actually, 2 of the other candidates also spoke as well. So there were 3 candidates. But that's going to be the big task of that convention. This year marked my 30th state convention, and as much as you try to plan and anticipate what it's going to be, you're never really sure until you get there, but that's certainly going to be a huge factor.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the conventions are, and election, meaning at the caucus, is kind of a long way off for a lot of people. But one of the things that happens in between is clearly we have up and coming for the city committee, and I think all the city committees in the state, including Rockport and Essex and Manchester, which often we do things together. March 3rd is the presidential primary.
And you're right on my next thing that I have on my list.
And we have to get people elected formally as members of each of the city committees. And, many people don't quite realize that, but we're now, we have tried to launch some awareness and publicity about this because any Democrat is eligible to be elected to a member of their ward committee. And then together we form, the 5 wards of Gloucester form a city committee. We work often closely with Rockport, but they have to elect their own city committee members. So,
if I can just jump
yes.
in there, so the big difference between Essex and Manchester and Rockport and Gloucester is that in Gloucester you have wards. So you're going to, in theory, you have the ability
That's
of
right.
electing 35 members in each ward, whereas the other towns are only eligible to elect 35 in the entire town. So that's the difference between a city and a town.
Right, but in the meantime, of course, we also have monthly meetings, the second Thursday of each month. We have to submit nomination papers, and being on the presidential primary ballot, either as a slate or individuals, is kind of a cool thing. I mean, that's it's not often that you can be on the same ballot as Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders. I mean, all of the Mayor Pete, the candidates who are going to appear in March on this ballot and when we go to vote, we'll see our name right up there.
I know some people who have more than one group of people who have framed them.
Yes,
because
right.
you have to go and get an extra copy.
Well,
or
it's
have
going to
them
be
blanket.
historic. That's right. So we have other activities, of course, during the spring. We have a brunch typically every year in Gloucester, and our date this year is May 3rd. And in an election year, we have just about every candidate wants to come to Gloucester, and I think we've had as many as 20 speakers 19 or 20 speakers. I'm sort of shuddering right now, but we've managed to do it without kind of, you know,
You have to tell them they have a time limit. I think
they
that was
do.
2014.
Yes.
We had a lot of people running.
That's right.
And we have, in Massachusetts, of course, continues to have a very late primary, so there'll never be a primary that spares us or limits that number down to 2. Another interesting thing, of course, to clarify, though, is that we have our October city committee meeting in Gloucester coming up, and because of a scheduling conflict, we have actually moved it for once to the 3rd Thursday
Right,
of the
October,
month, October 17th, at the Gloucester House at 7 p.m.,
Right.
where we'll be holding a forum of
Some of the municipal candidates, and I really have to explain this to everybody, even some of our members, that because we're a city committee, we're a political party, we are only inviting candidates who happen to be Democrats. But it's a nonpartisan election, and so there are other forums in the city to which all of the candidates can go and vote, and we, as a party, we don't endorse the candidates. I mean, we just allow them to speak and tell our members what it is they hope to accomplish. But clearly, one of our missions is to encourage Democrats to run for office, to encourage Democrats to volunteer for city commissions. There are many things that Democrats can do to get involved in civic life, and that's just part of our mission. So we are going to do that on the 17th of October.
which is where we will also have the nominating papers
That's
for
right.
anyone who wants to join the city committee in their ward. So if anyone is interested in doing that for the 2020 to 2024 cycle, they should come to the October 17th meeting at the Gloucester House at 7 p.m. because that's a good time to sign the papers.
Matt, one other thing that's going to appear on the March 3rd presidential primary ballot is there will be one male and one female who will be elected to represent this Senate district on the Democratic State Committee. And so there will be, I believe the female seat is an open seat.
It's
and then we have an incumbent that's running in the, Tom Lonsby from Hamilton is running for the male ballot seat. So there's also another opportunity where folks can have some input on who represents them on the Democratic State Committee.
How do candidates get nominated for the state committee?
So there are...
Or how do they?
So there are two that will, a male and a female from each Senate district who are elected on the presidential primary ballot. They will get nomination papers. They will circulate them. They will bring them back and have them returned. I believe it's 50 signatures that they have to get. And then they will, their name will appear on the presidential primary ballot. I've seen lawn signs, I've seen bumper stickers. I mean, there are situations where, people run real campaigns.
And so we have, the other thing is, of course, because we have Kathy Pasquin is hitting her 20 years, we have a vacancy. So that's an interesting thing, an opportunity for some new people to join. So one thing I actually want to talk about with the state committee is there are subcommittees on the state committee, and and there is a limited number of seats in each subcommittee for non-state committee members to get involved. Did you have any feelings about that, or
so I
encouraging people to get
always
involved?
suggest that's a great way for someone who is interested in becoming a member of the state committee. I always say, get on a subcommittee first, get to know some of the other people, and then the next thing you know, you're going to find that in one way or another, you're going to be a member of the Democratic State Committee. The different subcommittees are listed on the state party website, which is massdems.org. And that would be the best opportunity for somebody who is not a member to look and see if there's a subcommittee that they're interested in. Maybe there's something in particular that they think they can make a contribution, and let the state party know that they're interested in serving.
Excellent. And for people who want to stay more local, what would you suggest? What are their opportunities to get involved here in Gloucester with the city committee?
Well, I think we of course have a monthly newsletter that goes out to close to 1,000 individuals in all of Cape Ann, including Manchester. These are people who want to stay informed, in touch. They might have participated in one or more campaigns. Many of them come to monthly meetings. Every time somebody comes, I ask them to sign up and sort of indicate what they'd like to work on, because sometimes we have speakers, or we have, I mean, even this monthly program, we need hosts, we need guests, and sometimes monthly speakers on issues. But I think we're looking, and then there are events. So we enlist a lot of members to help plan the brunch, to help plan the sidewalk bazaar. We held a straw poll even this past summer in August, and that was just a lot of fun. I think we had more than 200 people cast votes for their favorite or their two favorites out of 24 candidates. But most of all, I think we want people to have fun. I mean, to become engaged, but to meet other people who have similar values and interests, and we're looking for ways to, increase the number of, say, meetings or social events that they can participate in. And some can be very informal, so we're going to be doing more of that this year.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I can say from experience that a lot of these meetings, get-togethers, they're not. You do not feel like you're in a silo. A lot of people's, social lives are very much influenced by being part. I wouldn't have known either of you, frankly, if not for being involved in the city committee and the state committee. It's an excellent way to engage with the community. There's also so there's plenty of ways to get involved, and a good way to find out how to get involved is to come to the meeting on the 17th.
And look at the Gloucester Democratic website, which is www.gloucesterdemocrats.org.
Excellent.
So,
Well, I'd like to thank my guests, Arthur Powell from Beverly and Karen Bell, who is the City Committee Chair here in Gloucester. Again, my name is Matthew Murray, and I am a member here of the Gloucester City Democratic Committee, which puts together Democratic Dialogue every month. As Karen mentioned, you can look at our website, gloucesterdems.org, or also Gloucester City Democratic Committee on Facebook or Instagram and Twitter, I believe. So we have all three.
all of the above.
All of the above.